So I'm going to interview Norvell who is a crazy artist guy that's been doing artwork all over the damn planet. Doing all kinds of great stuff. Is this you?
Yeah, it's me.
I can see me. I can't see you yet. Oh, there you are. Okay, there you go, dude. Nice hair. That's awesome. So, what have you been like sequestered for a couple of months or something? You can't go get a haircut?
Outside. Well, yeah, I haven't got. Not my. I mean, I live here about a third of the year, but I get my haircuts in New York, so.
Okay.
This hasn't happened.
Well,
we haven't been. We were supposed to go back to New York like 3 times already since this whole thing started.
So
and it's just been hell, you know.
Hi, I'm Bob. This is BOPisode, which stands for Born on Purpose. And I go out and find successful people that are doing cool stuff, and I interview them. Norvell is our guest today. And Norvell, where are you, Norvell? Tell us where you are.
Right now I'm in Riga, Latvia, which is a small Eastern European country.
In relationship to like Poland or Sweden or Austria, or where are you? Where is Latvia?
Latvia is one of the 3 Baltic states. There's Lithuania to the south, touching Poland, and then on our border here at Latvia. And then to the north is Estonia, which is very close to Finland, but not touching Finland. And all of these Baltic countries border the Russia at some point. Belarus and Russia.
Okay.
So it's, it was old Soviet territory until 1990.
And you're there like a third of the year?
We got a big project here about 7 years ago. And we're hired to design a museum, a chocolate museum for an old 1800 chocolate company here. And so Faye and I, my wife, designed this thing. And then they were like, "Well, this is great. We won the contest, won the bid." And then it was like, "Well, who's going to build it all?" So that's what we do too. So boom, it was like. And then we did 10 of their retail stores after the museum was done. So that was pretty cool. And that went on for about 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. That actually surprises me because I'm actually in the middle of writing a chocolate book, and you sound like you're a wealth of information about it. I mean, doing a museum. This is perfect. Yeah. So, okay, well then let's dial it back a little bit. Let's go back to the young Norvell, who born in New York. You were born and raised in New York?
Yeah, born in Queens, yeah.
Okay.
And I was born at North Shore Hospital, which is right over the border in Nassau County, and 1955, So
wow,
it's been a long time. I spent time on this planet. I don't usually leave the planet, but sometimes.
So, yeah, okay. Sometimes I understand.
Actually, I'm doing transcendental meditation quite a bit these days. I do it twice a day.
That's good. That's good for you.
The last 9 months I started. It's good.
Okay.
Really got me sane. I was losing.
Well, we'll be a judge of that.
I grew up in a small neighborhood in Queens, like the last town in Queens. Really cool place right on the water called Douglaston. So there were, people with yachts and stuff. It was kind of like a pretty posh little neighborhood in Queens. And mom and dad were divorced. So it was just me and my mom and my sister lived in this apartment. Dad was already living in the city like a playboy. And he's the architect. And then eventually, after going through the grammar school and junior high there, I applied to a school in New York City in Manhattan called High School of Art and Design, and got accepted to that. So I went there for 3 years. And that really, flipped my life. I think if I had gone to local high school, I'd say a third of my friends dropped out, disastrous.
So you kind of knew that you had a bend towards the arts and wanted to go that way.
Oh, yeah.
From when? When did that start?
Yeah, I mean, she's probably from 4 or 5 years old. I mean, it was sort of like, it was all I was ever reared to do or knew how to do. And always encouraged by my dad. He was, like I said, my father's an architect. His brother was a graphic designer. His other brother was an architect. My grandfather was an architect.
Wow.
My brother's an interior designer. Was an interior designer. So it was like, and everybody was like a painter too,
It's a genetic thing then. So it was just in your DNA. You were drawn. You not only were you kind of pushed that way because of your surroundings, you obviously were drawn to it as well. I mean, in terms of something. Yeah. You kind of remember the first, I don't know, the first kind of thing you did something artistic and got that admiration or that adulation or that, wow, you're really good thing. You remember any of those?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think about the first people that encouraged me would be like my mother and my father. And I was already like I don't know what happened, but I was already like a snot-nosed little kid that taking compliments from your parents was kind of like,
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mom. Well, you like it. I know you're gonna like it no matter what I do.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But so I guess the first thing would be a couple of paintings I did when I was about 16 or 17 that got recognition by some outside people that I kind of respected. And then I was in high school of art design at that point, so connected to the city and getting more feedback from places that I felt were better than mom and dad.
Yeah, sure. A little less biased, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then you did high school, and then what about go to university?
Well, I decided I was, matter of fact, my sister, I'm the youngest in my family too. So my sister was already like a big hippie. She was 7 years older than me. So when I graduated at 18, she was in her, mid-1. Was like, well, I didn't even go to graduation because she was like, I wanted to go to Texas and work with my brother because he was, he's 13 years older than me, and he had a big business going interior design. And she was like, well, I gotta go to Colorado. And I said, well, my graduation is next week. It's at Carnegie Hall, right? That's where our high school would go graduate. And she was like, no, we gotta leave tomorrow. We're leaving tomorrow. And because of her and her stonerisms, I left and I didn't go to graduation. So it's kind of, I never let her live this down, actually, when I think about it. But nonetheless, I graduated and I went to Dallas. And then I thought, no one was really giving me direction because I was like the last born and dad was gone. I was like, well, I don't really care to go to college. Let me take a year off and I'll think about it. And so then I went to Dallas and stayed there for a year. And by the time I finished the year, I had made like $30,000 doing murals and stuff for these projects that my brother brought to me. And, so I was 19, made 30 grand in 1975.
Yeah.
So,
dude, yeah.
I was like,
living the dream.
What Newberry?
Yeah, right.
I'm not going back. I tried. I struggled. I went to SMU for a little while in Dallas, night school, dropped out of that. So I had this hot girlfriend down there in Dallas. And of course, we became partners in this business together, doing murals and stuff around Dallas in the 70s. They were basically like super graphics at the time. And when we decided that we should break up, I was like, this town's too small for the both of us, ain't big enough for the both of us. So I moved town and drove like some jalopy back to New York and ended up working for my brother-in-law as an industrial designer. He was pretty successful doing products for Clairol and hair dryers and all kinds of things. We did a bobsled for the Olympics.
Wow.
And that's where I got a lot of my 3D experience working for him, making models on the lathe and all kinds of crazy stuff. Did that for about 2 years. What did I do? Then I moved to the city because I was still living in Queens now. In the same building I grew up, I got an apartment, and my mom was on the 3rd floor, I was on the 5th floor. That's funny.
So you skipped the whole university thing, which I have to admit was fun, but I shared the same thing with you. When I got out of high school, I didn't want to go to school. My dad really wanted me to go to the university. I only took a half a year off because he kept putting me under pressure, so I ended up going to Arizona State University, after in the second half of the year. But so you were like hands-on. I mean, your education literally came from work, from just doing physical, actually doing the thing.
Yep. I went to a few painting classes, like the Art Students League in New York, and the New York School, the studio school in New York, doing life drawing and all that kind of stuff. But I never actually went back for a formal degree or anything. I regret it because the part you talk about, to me, it would have been like a great networking opportunity, and to have friends instead of just high school friends that you transition through life with. You're like bringing in some different people that are, come from a higher level of education. But yeah, whatever. I did it without it.
I'll ding the bell here for that, because I think that's, I'm not a real fan of traditional education. But what it does do, as you mentioned, is it exposes you to all these other people, to a peer group, to other mentors, to other people. It gets you other contacts, which, I dropped out a little bit early from my education, but I had the same sort of regret. I wish I kind of would have carried on. I went back to school later, and did some stuff, and that was cool. But you were working for family. At what point did you sort of launch out on your own?
I would say first few years when I was in Dallas, I was kind of still working under my brother and his wife's, not control, but some guidance. I did a few odd jobs in there, painted houses, but primarily I was getting my work from them. And then it started to, explode a little bit. I got work on my own down there, but I was still kind of in this kind of, small city that I thought at the time Dallas was smaller than New York for sure, and still is. But the control, having the family like right there, I didn't really fly out of the nest yet. Then going back to New York, worked with my brother-in-law. That was another 2 years working for family, and then finally, at that point when I moved into New York City, that was it. I was on my own. That was 1970, something like that, 77, 78. Yeah, I moved into Tribeca with an old friend, and we split a loft. It was like amazing. $500 a month for the whole space.
Wow.
Crazy. Wow. I mean, it's like so that area. It's not funny.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, you couldn't even get near that now. You can't. Was there a particular avenue that you went into, or it was just whatever you could find?
Actually, it was kind of mixed bag. I was installing display systems with a friend of mine on the side for some company, and I was doing carpentry on the side for someone else, and I would pick up a mural here and there, which was basically, like I said, it was still 70s, kind of like super graphics. It wasn't classical murals or anything like that at the time. And then through some connections I got with the Hard Rock, I hooked up with the Hard Rock and went to Dallas to do this mural in the Hard Rock. And I went back to Dallas, funny, and did this mural at the Hard Rock Cafe in Dallas, which was a pretty cool place. It was an old mansion that they turned into the Hard Rock. It was one of the first, or like second or third ones. Uh-huh. And it was still controlled by that was like a crazy experience, because I lived in the penthouse of the hotel with the owner, with this Isaac guy, and he was nuts. He was so successful, and so his brain was like amazing, but he was a wake and bake guy. The guy would roll a big one and smoke from morning till night.
Wow.
And still like a successful. His wife was Maureen Starkey. Ringo Starr's wife, ex-wife.
Ex-wife, yeah. He had a few of them.
So that was kind of okay. So I'll go on because the Dallas experience at that point took on a different velocity, and I met. I was walking through a shopping mall. I had my portfolio in the car for some reason. I was walking through a shopping mall in Dallas, and I saw this construction site, and I just thought, I don't know what compelled me to do that, but I peeked into the building and walked around this construction site. It was kind of after hours, and the only person in there was the designer of the store. And so he says, how can I help you? And I'm like, oh, well, just like take a look. What is this? And it was a limited express store. And it's a chain of clothing stores that was really big in the US for a long time. And he was like, yeah, I'm an artist. You're an artist? Oh, great. What do you do? And I said, well, I got my portfolio. Carl, bring it in here. And I showed it to him. So we need a cloud mural on this wall here. But we're opening tomorrow night. Can you do it tonight? Like, yeah, okay. That was the big break because I hooked up with this guy, went back to New York, and within a year, he had me doing all this work for all these stores. And I was already hiring people, and I was working, painting and living in the same place in Tribeca. But then we quickly had to rent another floor, and then rent another space, and then rent another space, and it just grew from there.
Wow, that's
pretty
awesome.
quick.
So just a lark.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. By 1988, 89, I think that's what it was. Yeah, 1988, 89. We had about 100 employees.
Wow. So it was primarily retail interiors and art needs for that kind of public kind of things, yeah?
Well, I'd say at that point we were probably the largest mural painting company, I think, maybe outside of LA in the world. But nobody knew about us because they wouldn't let us publicize ourselves for what we were doing for them, So it was kind of a brag.
You were locked into this guy to do his work for him. So you had your own company, but there was built-in work. You didn't have to go out and pound on doors and solicit. Awesome.
Just PO after PO after PO.
Wow.
It was just rolling. Packs of POs. Matter of fact, we were doing so many stores at one point. We would have a mural being up on the wall that we started. We always used to do it in oils. We would do an acrylic paint foundation, and then sketch out an acrylic, a lot of projection. We project and paint figures or whatever, and then do oil on top to get it really nice and juicy. And we would have them on the wall and be like, wait a minute. And the girl helping me, actually, Faye, my wife now, was helping them and started running the studio. Like, wait a minute, that mural's not due till for another month. We got another one that's not even up on the wall that's due next week. Yeah. So we'd be like putting murals on top of murals and painting them in order. It was just crazy time.
Awesome. And then you got to know a lot of the New York guys. You introduced a lot of talent. Were you using young, talented people? A lot of students and stuff, or?
We had some students. Most of them were graduates, though. But yeah, the pool of talent. I mean, I've gone through. It's amazing how many people I've gone through over the years, and there's some great talent. Some of them are still with me. A couple of guys are still in the old days, even from when we were working over there in Macau. A couple of guys with me. The whole theory there was that I felt, like I was thinking at that point I should move out of New York City. But all my guys were like from the boroughs taking subways, and everybody was working on a dime, so like they had to be close enough to the job. So I had to stay in Manhattan.
Okay.
I saw it.
So between Disney and doing the New York stuff, how did you find out about Disney? What brought you to the Asian part of the world?
Well, funny because back in those days, we did a lot of trade shows for ourselves. The restaurant show, the retail show, the one in Vegas, I can't remember what it was called. It was one of the hotel shows. And it seemed like, if you have enough backing and you do enough of those shows, your name's going to get out there pretty good. And that's how we met Disney. And Disney came to one of the shows, found us. I don't remember who it was, but we started doing some work in their park in Florida, little pieces here and there, mural for a hotel, mural for this, mural for that. And same in California, we did some work. And then restaurants, the Hard Rock thing petered out. We did a few locations. But Disney picked us up for one of those shows. No, we did Disney Sea in Tokyo before we did.
Awesome. Wow. Disney Sea, just for any of you out in the audience that haven't gone to Disney Sea, it's the best. It's absolutely the best Disney on the planet. It's just incredible.
It is.
I've been twice, and both times I've just been amazed. They kind of pissed me off because after I was doing the Venetian in Vegas, and then Disney approached the company I was working with and said, hey, we're doing a Venetian thing in Tokyo for a Disney thing, but we want it to look like really good. We want it to look, really good. And I thought, because I thought the Venetian turned out pretty good, and I was pretty proud of it. And these Disney guys were saying, but we want to make ours really good. With that sort of undertone of, so. And I didn't like it. I had done some other work for Disney. Tough people to work for. I mean, back then it was really difficult. Then later, I went to Disney Sea in Tokyo, and I went to the Venice thing that they did, and they were right. I went, and it was it was Venice on steroids. The colors were brighter. Yeah. The details were
colorful.
I mean,
it was hand painted,
and they took it to a higher level, and it dropped my jaw, and I went, God, they were right. I had to kind of tuck my pride aside and say what they really did, and the whole park is like that.
Disney thing, they were like high quality, and all the murals we did for that place. We were there for about a year in Tokyo doing that park. All interior. We did one mural on the outside, but most of the stuff was interior, and all very high level, the highest level of mural painting, trompe l'oeil, and all kinds of really cool stuff. It was a lot of fun, and living in Tokyo, I mean, just love it.
Wow. Yeah, that was pretty incredible times, I bet. So, and the money was good, yeah?
Yeah, money was, I mean, they weren't like they are now. They were not holding back anything. It was just like, it was crazy, carte blanche practically, just, it was an amazing project.
Wow, pretty cool. Let's talk about the state of affairs today in your industry. How would you characterize it? Just in terms of where we're at. I mean, setting aside this whole last couple months, because that's just weird. I mean, nobody's doing anything right now, but in terms of just before that hit, how would you characterize murals? It's changed a lot. It has changed a lot because, there used to be a whole lot of hand painting. All the murals that we did for Vegas, Venetian, were all hand painted and wallpapered up. When we came to Macau, we did all kinds of digital printing stuff, because that technology came forward.
I was pushing hard for that hybrid thing, I mean, we bought into digital printing. God, that must have been back in 80. No, not 80. What am I saying? 97. We bought into really early wide format. Wide format back in 87 was like 42 inches or something, or 60 inches max.
Right.
I think that's what we had. We printed I remember showing the samples to you guys where we printed and then painted the top and then varnished. And it was pretty amazing. And the print underneath would give you a solid foundation for the guide. But from that point on, we had a lot of clients with that machine. Solvent-based inks, but they were like pucks and wax that you put into this machine. It was like the cutting edge thing, and it got outdated so fast.
Wow.
I invested about a time a lot for me. It had to be like $500,000 in the equipment and the team to run it. And we got MTV, we had Sony, we had a bunch of stuff going on in New York. And then within a year and a half, the media was failing, the stuff was fading, and it was just horrible.
Oh.
So I lost my shirt on it, and I tried to dump the whole thing and couldn't pay the lease on the machinery. And then we got, it turned into a big legal battle. And that's actually when we changed our name from Modeworks, which we were back then, to Silver Hill Atelier. I think when we met, we were already...
Silver Hills, yeah.
Silver Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, we already were Silver Hill.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Well, that's a tough story.
So digital printing, I didn't embrace it like I should have. A lot of guys from just sign shop experience got into the game, and they were printing all these giant murals for some big name shops and things. And at the same time, architecture changed, and the sort of painted mural thing is kind of getting out of fashion. In retail, for sure, it's gone. It hasn't come back yet. I mean, some large photos, maybe. I keep thinking maybe it'll come back. It's going to come back. But that digital printing really turned the business on its ass, and I don't think it's ever really recovered.
If we look back in history, we can see, painting was in the days of the Renaissance. That was the media. That was how you communicated and did stuff. Then we got into music, and we got into radio, and then we got into video stuff, and that became a big rage. And now it's movies, now it's internet stuff. If you're doing something, if you want to make a statement or something, you're doing it somehow on the internet. So it has evolved, the media. Have you grown with that, or are you kind of holding out on your stuff, or I don't know? Tell us where you're at with that.
Yeah, we've grown with things and trend. I mean, we did a big, massive hand-painted mural last year in the Bahamas at a 5-star hotel, the Rosewood, and that was fabulous. We had a crew there, and it was like the old days. They put us up, carte blanche, and the whole thing. So our crew was down there for a month, painting the whole place, the whole lobbies, the lift lobbies. It was really fun. Reminded me of the old days. But it's like those kind of projects are really few and far between. So what we've done, because of my experience going way back, and I said earlier about industrial designer, working for my brother-in-law, and the architecture part of my family, I've always had an interest in building things, and I was pretty apt with tools until about 5 years ago. And did that.
Oh, well, that's not a good thing. Yeah, do you still have it? Do you have it in a jar somewhere or something? Or?
Yeah.
Just kidding. But if that's cool. If you gotta send us a picture of it in the jar, if you really have it. Okay.
Actually, it damaged all 3 fingers on my hand.
Wow.
So, they all got reattached. This one just didn't speak after the reattachment. So then they had to take it off again. But it was it was a stupid thing, just working on a table saw. You know how you get so confident on a table saw that it ran in there on a Sunday when I should have been working. It was here in Latvia where it happened, actually. Working on a Sunday, I had a drink before I went to the shop, and I just wanted to get out of the house. And what I was doing was making a thing so I could fit my window air conditioner out the window.
Yeah.
Those kind of tubes that you have to get hot air out. And I was cutting these pizza slices like that, and just So stupid, so stupid. One split second inattention, and boom.
Wow.
We were leaving back from New York the next day, and that stopped. So stayed here for 3 months, 8-hour surgery, 8 days in the hospital.
Terrible.
The whole thing.
On the left
that was
hand?
a life change.
Yeah, and you're
left, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And,
right hand.
And I assume you're right-handed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we were making things, again, with my architecture and industrial design background. It was like something I'd like to do. Like, wherever I live, I have a workshop somewhere, all that stuff. I'm not afraid of the saw anymore, it doesn't bother. Of course, when this did happen, now I'm going to go back and finish. My major was filmmaking. And I did a pretty cool 10-minute film while I was in high school that I filmed in the streets of New York in the 70s, And I was a bicycle freak. I was racing all over the place. And I did it about this bicycle freak who was my friend. And I mounted my camera to the bike and was shooting action stuff, moving and all around the city. And it climaxes with a bicycle being thrown off the 59th Street Bridge in slow-mo and going down into the water. And that freed the demons of this guy who was possessed with his bicycle. So
cool.
It's funny. For a 17-year-old, it was quite an accomplishment. And that was a turning point. What I would have done differently, even though I'm successful now, I think, I would have gone into filmmaking. My family did not recognize this project. And a 20-minute film for a 17-year-old and the ingenious stuff I did with it, it was pretty cool. I should have stuck with it. Someone should have said, you gotta make movies. You gotta keep doing that. But no, it's my dad, Norvell, paint me another picture. That's my father talking. So. Anyway, that's the filmmaking portion. Actually, when this happened, that's what I was saying. When I cut the finger off, I decided, I'm sorry, I can say that, yeah. I'm not doing this anymore. I got a couple of my guys. You guys take over and run the business. I'm going to take a year off, and I'm going to film school. And I did. I went to New York Film Academy for about 6 months and started making movies. And I'm still into it. I'm more into the writing aspect of things than I learned quickly that it wasn't just jump in and make your own movie. At this age, it was just energy level was, I don't know. You got to kind of compartmentalize it because those films are such team efforts.
Right.
That the idea of taking hold of the whole thing, I didn't have that 30-year-old energy anymore. I was already almost 60 then. And had my base business of the mural and fabrication stuff. So kind of ended up rolling back into that. But I'm writing stories all the time. So
well, that's
eventually.
Cool. That's awesome. I mean, because you're right. The film, I did some set and scenery work with film stuff, and it was an alluring area. But boy, it's a giant team of people to make stuff. It's such a huge collaboration and coordination of people and I know you understand this as an artist type of character. The bigger group you get, boy, it's really hard to kind of keep on the vision and not let it get homogenized and diluted and stunted in all kinds of ways. It's difficult when you get into a big organization. You're doing something artistic. It's hard to hang on to the basis of it, so that it kind of reads at some point. Exactly. Well, actually, I had an exact point where I said, well, I have 100 employees. I can run a crew of 100 people, but it's my employees were all focused on the same kind of effort. Whereas on a film, it's you got your sound guy, and you got your lighting, and you got your grips, and you got your director, and you got your producer, and you got and you got to think about the money, where you get the money from. It's fuck. I just couldn't. A little bit. Yeah, I understand. I can remember the studio times. I did big murals and big backdrops and stuff like that, and it's kind of lonely. I mean, you have a small crew, but you do those overnight things where you're just up for hours and hours painting, and and you kind of get that punch drunk kind of just doing your thing, getting the job done. But it's a little lonely, and it's not a whole lot of glamour. That's one of the things that as an artist that fell away from me is, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be an artist. There's a lot of just slog it out by yourself or with a few other people, cleaning brushes, and I mean, it's just it's not the glamorous thing that I thought. Same with movie making. It was a lot of hurry up and wait stuff in movies.
I also started out when I was in Tribeca. I wanted to be a painter showing in galleries. So my roommate was a painter showing in galleries, and all he did was carpentry on the side, and then he'd go back to the studio and paint every day, and kind of keeping it separate. Instead, I had this, because the mural business, that's another thing that kind of interfered with my life or my original desires, to be a painter. Those guys in those days, in the 70s, they were like, oh, you're just a prostitute. You're out there painting these murals for somebody. And, it's like I was literally, by several of these years, I was considered kind of a lowlife, like I'm out there,
doing
selling my shit.
Yeah, commercial stuff. Yeah.
Decorative soap art,
And I feel you on that whole commercial thing and that whole kind of feeling like a sellout or a prostitute with what you're doing, and doing what's necessary. And I guess by the time you get our age, you come to grips with it, because and it's not so much that you need to make a paycheck. You really have to kind of have open ears and eyes about what your client needs. I mean, and it's not always what you think they need. It's, they have a niche that they're trying to fit, and they're not talented enough to do it. You may not be exactly what you want to do, but it's what they need. And you still fulfill that, and you still, life goes on, and it's better than it could have been, So, because I felt the same kind of soreness. I have artistic friends that went on and became, kind of sole proprietors and doing their art thing. And I envy them, but they also suffered a lot, and I just didn't like the suffering part, and that whole starving artist thing. No, I liked eating, and I liked having fun, and I liked having toys, and I didn't like the poor thing for me, It doesn't sound like you did either.
And it's funny because, like, one of my guys, so he's an old friend of mine. I met him in Dallas. He's a pretty successful artist. In fact, even then, he was doing pretty well in Dallas. He ended up moving to New York and selling in galleries. And during that time, from those late 80s through the 90s, I was like, man, you really got it made. You just sit there and crank out these things. But he was like, they were kind of cookie cutter. And I was like, it drive me insane, because my stuff, it's not that everything was different and I would flow, but there would be like a year or two of a process to evolve. And he's barely evolved. I like his work. It's very decorative, beautiful stuff. But I was always so envious of him. And then, of course, when the economy crashed that time, I guess that was, it was in the late 90s. Yeah. And then, that was the one I'm thinking of. Late 90s pushed him where no one was buying. The world of his art had changed too. Mm-hmm. And here I was working on commercial projects like Disney and with you guys, the Venetian, and things were good, I mean, I was flying all over the place and doing this stuff, living around the world. We did all those Planet Hollywoods for a number of years too, and that got us everywhere.
That's pretty awesome.
And that was why I couldn't sell a count name to save his life at that point.
Well, tough times. Yeah, hopefully he's saved up a little bit. I don't know. That is also one of the things that I share with you in the sort of lifestyle that we have is the projects were always different. There was always some, you'd done something like it, but not it. There were always there was some new challenge and some completely new problems to solve. I never felt like I was just pocket making another one of these. It was always some new thing. And, now I'm doing the theme park thing and you're always looking for a new attraction, a new something, some kind of new angle at it. It's big money. So there's still the compromises that happen, but at least there's still this effort and this intention to do something new and unusual that no one's seen before, or some pivot or version of something that takes it to a new level. So as opposed to, we could have been working in a car factory. And I think I would have just shot myself, trying to do the same thing every day. It'd be crazy for years and years. You want to talk about mistakes that you see people doing in this industry?
I try not to pay attention or highlight other people's mistakes because I'm the one that's making all the mistakes.
Okay.
But
that's your job.
In the industry, I just think one of the where we're going forward about the changes in the industry. Another thing I see after the digital printing is the senses of taste and style. And I guess in theme parks, you probably don't get that as much. But yeah, you still have the high-end restaurants that go into those theme parks. And, a lot of that was our client for murals and things. Now, and the hotels, of course, right, they go along with those theme parks. And in those hotels and things, I find that the trend has also gone to original art. Like a lot of times they're looking for the artist, not just a company that's painting, coming up with something site-specific. Now they're more like, we want Joe Blow, who's famous, to do a big lobby. You know what I mean? We're up against that a lot. Working with architects like Rockwell in New York, still, they're one of our top clients, and we were always doing custom things for them, and now they're it seems to be like a good chunk of the work is to that kind of original art.
Okay.
They'll find an original artist, and then that guy will handle it. Never has before.
Right.
Like this sculptor has those Smurfy-looking sculptures, not Jeff Koons, but I do these things like that. And we had a client ask us to make one of his sculptures real big, and then we gave a price, and then of course, and the sculptor himself thought, well, that sounds pretty good. And he just did it himself, and so that's one of the things. But as far as mistakes that other people are making, I'm not following the trends, other people's mistakes. It's really like not. I would think about like my major competitor used to be Evergreen. They in New York, and they always had an edge on us because they focused restoration, and the restoration industry was a great backbone because it never really. It was always there. That work was always there, and it's always going to be. So I think they're probably hurting in the new mural world as much as anybody else is. The new mural world is now digital printing, but I can't say that they're making a mistake. It's just a given.
Where do you think it's going to go, Norvell? What do you think? You think there's going to be some new trend, or you think the seasoned characters like yourself will still, they'll see those few and far between really, really nice resorts that want hand-painted quality level that you can't get it. I'm sorry. All this digital stuff is really, really wonderful, and I've used it to my benefit, for big, big projects, but it just ain't the same. I'm sorry. It just doesn't have the snap. It doesn't have the pop.
Right.
So,
well, there's also the graffiti effect too, which has taken over a lot of stuff. not necessarily graffiti as one would think, where someone's just spraying their name on a train. It's that kind of like Banksy, and there's a Japanese guy I saw recently that did some really nice looking stuff. Layers and layers of textures and paints. But the graffiti aspect is that it's all done in that same kind of, they spray a soft area and then they paint over it, and you get these layers of activity, and it's pretty amazing. The wall I was thinking of was the one on Bowery in the house in New York. There's a wall that gets changed every couple of months. It's funded by some real estate firm, and it's really famous. It's constantly getting really cool murals on it.
Okay.
So there's that aspect, the original art aspect and the graffiti art aspect. But where it's going, we do a lot of finishes still. We still, I'd say, good 30% of our work is finishes. The plasters and stuff, and same old thing happening. But again, in addition to that, in the last 5 years, we started building more intricate things, and that's what got me to Latvia. Well, that chalk museum got me here. And then through the associations I made when we did the chocolate museum here, we recently got into these children's playrooms and luxury condos and high-rises. So we've done about 20 projects, half of which were for like Related Company, which is a huge developer in New York City. And we do these playrooms in their luxury condo high-rises for all the nursery kids to go to. Wow. And they're pretty amazing, interactive and all dimensional stuff. They're all themed. It's like a mini theme park in these little buildings. It'll be like a 2,000 square foot playroom. We did one recently that had a pirate ship, a fishing ship, like almost quarter scale, but cool with sails and clouds and planets going through the whole thing. It was really amazing. And there's slide and there's little things for them to climb, and we're doing one now. And actually, that's thank God we've got a fat job recently for this year, which is like we locked it in just before all this shit happened.
Yeah.
It's private for these people that just have gobs of money, and they're pulling out all the stops for this playroom in their house. And it's a lot of fun. You get to think like a kid, making these crazy things.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah. If somebody's kind of interested in this industry or this range of work, they like painting, they like what sort of advice would you give to them? What would you say to them to get started? Would you say go to school? Would you say, I don't know, tell me what you'd say.
I still believe firmly in academic training as far as painting goes. I think if you work that way and work towards to excel in academia and painting, that would be the place to start with for any kind of painting career, whether you're going to go into abstract or what. I think you really should have, I much more respect and appreciate someone that I can tell has good draftsmanship in their work and quality color and paint versus some of the schlock you see out. There's a lot of people don't. So I would say, good art school or decent art school, even though I didn't go, or just learn it on your own, So you got to spend a few years kicking around doing that, I messed around and tried to get into galleries, and I was doing that in the 80s. So that was kind of another school of hard knocks that I had gone to, and took a few life drawing classes along the way. And I guess I was lucky and had built-in talent from my family. But I would recommend that. And then the other thing I would recommend would be to get a job with a big firm or a place like Disney or a place like Venetian or a place like that, whether it be just the touch-up guy going around and doing stuff, because you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn a lot, and that's the other thing. Doing that is like what you and I did, a school of earn and learn, right? And I think it excels in the school taught, excels over the school taught approach. You're making money and you're burning, and you're learning how to do stuff, and you're in charge. Maybe you're like 3 notches down from the top guy or whatever, but you're gonna learn so much and so much faster than you would in school. I think that's the way to go.
I would agree with you, Norvell. I totally agree with you. Yeah, because getting that skill set down, that's the only little bit of remorse that I had for not like persevering through the the traditional education. But see, even then, back in the 70s, when I was going to the university, the art department, it was about being cool. It really wasn't about learning the chops. It was, I mean, honest to God, I look back and 90% of my attention was about trying to be cool, whatever that meant at the time,
right.
And getting with friends and stuff, and doing new things. And I think, there's a loss there. I think that there's a skill set that is just holding a pencil and making it do its thing. That hasn't changed in 1,000 years. And getting that chop down, and you can innovate with it from there. Same thing with painting, airbrushing, using different types of brushes, understanding that kind of stuff. There's a whole new, that's one of the things that I envy you a little bit about, is all the new chemical different paints now, all the different media that you have as choices that we didn't used to have back in the 70s. We had a couple choices, and then the whole thing of car paints came along, and all the different types. There was paraffin paints, and there's just, there's all kinds of urethanes now. There's all kinds of stuff out there to do things with that you'll know about. I don't know about because I haven't had my hands wet with it.
Yeah, we're on top of all that stuff, technologically speaking, and this, now that we're making things and all this interactive stuff, putting computers into the work, it's really vast, and there's so many avenues you can go down compared to just sticking with the traditional stuff. But I feel sorry for the kids that come out of school like just with a BFA and MFA. Like, what are you gonna do unless you're gonna get picked up by galleries? You're gonna live like in this frustration working at Barnes and Noble, or pulling coffee at Starbucks,
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I think that's probably the advice is, even if you want to go be a struggling artist, you don't necessarily have to struggle. You can find guys like Norvell that have cool projects that are going, and there's such a vast amount that we could learn from a guy like you, having had you had your hands in it for years and years, and watching the changes happen, and that's kind of the fun of it for me, is taking all those puzzle pieces that you have, and some rich guy comes and says, hey, I want to make a playroom. Sky's the limit, and you got all the tools, so kind of a fun thing. And here you are in your 60s now, still thinking like a kid, so
it's good.
It's good.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, anything else you want to say, Norvell? You want to kind of wrap up a little bit?
I'll probably think of something later after we talk.
Well, that's cool. Well, thanks.
But for now.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get yourself back to New York soon. Hopefully the borders will open up and we'll all be able to kind of go home. I'm still, my wife and kids are still in Vietnam. They can't come to China. So I'm still stuck by myself here. But, we're getting along. So Norvell, thanks for taking this time with me.
All right. Thanks,
and I appreciate your candor and stuff. And okay, Norvell. All right, man. Take care. Thank you. Well, I hope I get to see you soon again sometime, man. We'll run again with each other. And good luck with the family and getting back to New York and all that good stuff.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.